Hey everyone, welcome on in. We're just waiting. I know a couple folks are having some technical difficulties here, but we'll get started in a few minutes. All right, Zach, can you? I see you in here. I don't know if you can. There you are.
Hey, how are you?
There he is. What's going on, man?
Not much. Sorry about that. I think my Shift5 email actually had this tool blocked, which was the hang up. We're good though.
Oh, good. So we can't get past the OT security systems. Good.
Exactly. We gotta live it.
That's the yikes. Well, if you were having trouble, a few others might as well. So we'll just give folks a couple minutes here to trickle in. We got a good number RSVP'd for this one. I think we were north of 20 or so. So
Cool.
we'll give it a minute or two. Are you out on the West Coast? Where are you at now, Zach?
Yeah. I'm in LA. So for anyone else on the link right now, Noah and I have been talking. Been at Shift5 for about 4 months now. Been in DC for probably cumulatively like a month of that time. So part-time resident out there, but it's nice. I love getting into DC.
That's great. Hey, so for as folks are coming in, feel free to go ahead, introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know who's with us. Who you are, where you're calling in from, and then if you got a company or affiliation, that's awesome too. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. We'll as we've been doing with these, Zach and I will kick off. We'll do have a little conversation to start, and then we'll turn it over to you all and do some Q&A and bring some folks up onto the stage here now that I've learned how to do that, so people can ask their questions directly. But cool. Yeah, Zach, are your guys traveling? Anybody at Sea Aerospace or anything this week? I know there's so many of these conferences going on.
Yeah, over the next few weeks. I don't know why it always happens within a bucket of like 3 weeks condensed, but yeah, we have a ton of people out on the road right now. Definitely a lot of people at Sea Aerospace, and then there's another big one in Chicago. Do we have people at? I'm blanking on the name.
Good deal. Yeah, well, I know a lot of folks on the road right now. It's big conference season before we go into peak summer, which is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I want to be, Zach, I want to be respectful of your time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time who showed up today and given us a few minutes on a Wednesday afternoon, a beautiful Wednesday afternoon out here on the East Coast, at least. Zach Greenberg, Head of Talent Acquisition at Shift5, coming over from a number of years at Daversa Partners, where he was Associate Director at one of the top kind of executive search firms, especially in the national security and defense space. We'll talk all about it. But Zach, it's awesome to have you with us. Excited for folks to learn from you. Why don't you start? Give us a little bit of the kind of the story about how you ended up at Shift and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So appreciate you having me first off, and thank you to everyone that joined. I can't see other faces, but I know there are people here. So I guess taking it back to the beginning, I come from a different background. Like I don't come from government. I don't come from this world necessarily. I studied supply chain, and I thought I was going to get into that world. I was in a job in procurement at a big CPG company. Realized it wasn't for me. Had a few connections at Daversa Partners, and that's what led me there. I was there for a little close to 6 years before I joined Shift5. And as you said, the model at Daversa, we're an executive search firm. So we do C-suite VP level searches across venture-backed tech companies is really our bread and butter. And that could be anything consumer, that could be anything enterprise. So when you get there, you really just get thrown into it and you start to figure out what you like. And I probably 2 or 3 years into working there, had this awesome opportunity, thanks to the partner I was working with and some of their connections, to work with Anduril, which if you're listening to this right now, you probably know them as a business. And it was really, really cool. It was like pretty disruptive at that time. Defense tech was not nearly as big as it is now. And we're not talking too long ago. This is really 3 to 4 years ago. And we were doing a few different searches for them. Fast forward, we worked with them for about 3 years. We did 6 or 7 executive searches with them. And I started to work with other companies like Saildrone and Rebellion Defense, and just a lot of great businesses across the board in this world. Outside of that, it was general aerospace and defense, but I really started to carve this out as my niche because I felt there was a real mission behind what these companies were building, which was pretty awesome, as opposed to something that was just general B2B software or general B2C. Like, nothing wrong with it, but I got really fired up about the work that I was doing. So ultimately, 6 years at any one place, I was starting to think about what's next. I really did see a path for me to continue at Daversa, and I have nothing but amazing things to say. If there are executives on this call too, and you're trying to get into any of these companies, like, seriously, they are the best of the best. But I got introduced to our CEO at Shift5, Josh Lospinoso, and the mission was incredibly interesting to me. The size and stage of the company was very interesting to me. The role to build out this recruiting function was really exciting to me, and led me here. Had a series of interviews. I joined on in the beginning of January, so I've been here for about 3-4 months now.
It's crazy. I feel like you've been in this seat for years already, but maybe it's. I'm sure you probably do too.
Yeah.
But it's been super cool, Zach, just seeing you kind of step in and just crush it, in a new role. And I think it's interesting seeing how, for folks listening, there's a couple of these, call them functions, where you have both pieces of the puzzle. You have the agency model. Certainly legal has this, recruiting and talent has this, marketing has this. There's a number of finance. There's kind of this too. You could kind of go to an agency, you see a lot of customers, you get a broad view, and then you could go in-house, and it's a different kind of experience. I'd be really curious, Zach, from your perspective, like what's that been like? What were the benefits of being in the agency, and then what's different about being in-house right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of the skill sets do translate pretty well. And it's an open dialogue I had with Josh throughout the entire interview process. I'm sure other people that were up for this position had that in-house experience. Like, from the actual structure of the job standpoint, you could be working with 10 different companies at a time. So you're a little bit like a squirrel, where you're, pitching one company at, noon one day, and then 3 p.m. you can be focused on closing a search for a completely different business in a different space. So I think just having like the core focus on one mission is really exciting, and it's still ongoing for me. You can't learn everything in 3 to 4 months, but I've been able to go really deep on like how we operate, how do we really make money, how do we plan to grow and scale. So you can get a little bit more in depth in-house, but the skills that I learned from a recruiting standpoint in the executive search world, it is very much a process. Like, we weren't just looking at a LinkedIn profile, having one interview, and then telling someone, yeah, you got the job. These could oftentimes take like 3 to 6 months, these different searches. So it was very structured. We would, set up target lists of candidates. We would have multiple touch points, prepping them for interviews, debriefing them for interviews. And I've tried to instill a lot of that here at Shift5. Now, as we scale, it's probably not as sustainable if it's a more volume recruiting situation where we might have 50 to 100 open recs at any given time. We're not there yet, but it's going to be a little bit different in that capacity, where we'll be building out a team, still trying to have more of that process and that rigor that I brought in from executive search, but it's obviously apples to oranges in a few ways when it comes to that.
Yeah, that volume of rec sounds wild.
Yeah, that's probably an over exaggeration, but I'm saying, at some point, hopefully.
That's the goal, right? Cool. I think people who are joining this call likely fall into 2 buckets. There are people who are really interested in hearing about, who are just interested in defense tech generally, thinking about career transitions or jobs themselves. And there's also a group that's, I think, interested in Shift5 and the work that you guys are doing. Let's knock that out first. Give folks an overview of what is Shift5, what are you guys working on, where are you at as a company?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I didn't come from government. I did not serve in the military. So I I knew that I wanted to get into something that was touching those areas, but I didn't want to pretend to be an expert in that world. And for a lot of people that are looking to get into defense tech right now, I think there are a lot of folks like me where they realize if they come from just a technology background, they're able to do something at a company that has more of a mission orientation. But one of the prerequisites for me is I don't want something that's just purely focused on government. Like from a business standpoint, wanted to have that array of dual use is the terminology that gets thrown out there a lot, and that is what we are today. I will say for Shift5, right now we are uniquely focused on the public sector and in military, but the way to think about us is we protect things that move in the physical world. So the kind of classic story is our two co-founders came out of the U.S. Army Cyber Command, and they realized that our weapon systems were incredibly susceptible to different cyber attacks. So Josh, he hacked apart his wife's Honda Civic, which is the classic story, proved out this could work, took it to generals and put it on actual platforms of different fighter jets and showed that we really had a real product here. Fast forward, 5 years later, like I said, now we're working with some of the blue chip commercial aviation, commercial rail companies that you would think of, but then also pretty much every division of the military. We're powering full fleets of certain aircraft. So instead of just being like cybersecurity focused now, it's a full data observability platform. And then we have different modules that are kind of a part of that product. So it's cybersecurity, it's predictive maintenance. We have different product suites underneath that kind of full observability platform, but we're rooted in cybersecurity, if that makes sense.
Super cool. It's commercial aviation. Glad they're focused on cybersecurity. Maybe we also need to focus on like plugging the windows and the doors.
Well, that's not predictive maintenance, but it's incredibly relevant for what we do. Even the situation with the Baltimore Bridge a couple of weeks ago, like I'm recruiting candidates and people say, is Shift5 involved at all in what's going on right now? I say, no, maybe we should be, but that was what attracted me to it. I mean, a lot of times you think about cybersecurity and instead of us protecting an IT network, right? It's an air platform, it's a submarine, it's any sort of vehicle. So it's pretty exciting. I'm obviously biased, but it's exciting because it is that physical world. And I actually, I came on board and kudos to our marketing team. But I don't know if anyone on this screen has seen that it's pretty dystopian, kind of scary, the Leave the World Behind, that Netflix special. It's a great cast. But it was essentially like all of these systems getting hacked. And we launched a big marketing campaign that was really successful for us on the heels of that. And it's true. It's like it was Tesla's getting hacked. And a lot of these vehicles are really just computers with wheels. So I do think it's pretty important the work we're doing.
It's really cool. Really timely. News to be your friend or your enemy right now. If you guys got the wins at your back, it's awesome. For folks who are joining, go ahead as you're listening to the conversation. We'll turn to open Q&A in a few minutes here. Feel free to start dropping questions in the questions tab, and we'll bring some folks up to the screen here in a few. Zach, let's pivot. Let's do the other side of this, which is the candidate experience recruiting. You've seen it from two sides. You've seen it from a executive search side where you guys are going out and scouting, the super senior folks. Now at Shift, I know you've been doing a lot of senior recruiting, but also now starting to think about mid and even junior level recruiting. And it's competitive right now. Give us your take on kind of what's the state of play recruiting in defense tech. We kind of hear about the hype. What are you seeing from a talent perspective? Are there a lot of people moving in from industry or from department or from DoD that are changing kind of the dynamics of the market, or does it look, what's kind of the vibe right now?
Yeah, so of the open searches that I've had and the searches we've closed since I joined, it's probably like a 60-40 split. 60% of the folks coming not from defense tech at all and coming from like traditional Silicon Valley tech companies. And then the other 40% coming from this space and coming from even like pure government or folks coming from like aviation companies, if it's not necessarily a tech company, because we have a lot of roles that are specifically focused on that.
Yep.
I think it is a really exciting time to get into defense tech, and I'm seeing this uptick in people coming from, fintech companies that say, maybe I just want to, get into this mission in some capacity. And there are a lot of businesses out there that are dual use, like I was talking about. So you're able to take a lot of those skill sets. But for me personally, the work we've been doing, at least on the front end, has been heavily in our engineering organization. And generally, we don't see it as a blocker if they don't come from this domain. It's always a nice to have if they've worked in a company that's like tangentially aligned to what Shift5 does. But if you're a software engineer who knows the tech stack that we have, and clearly has good trajectory in whatever company they were at before, they can do the job here.
That's a perfect lead into the next question. So their engineering, it's very flexible, doesn't have to come from defense. What are other, a lot of folks who are Regis defense tech jobs or even on the call are probably non-technical folks. Some are coming directly from government, as you see in the chat, others from elsewhere. Talk us through like the three categories. What are great roles for folks coming directly out of DoD that maybe you've seen at Shift5 or defense tech companies writ large? Start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the go-to-market side of the house, it's a huge advantage to just say, I know this customer inherently well. So there's a bunch of different ways you could slice it. There are business development roles, there are capture roles, there are pure sales roles. Like, there's a lot you can do on the go-to-market side. And different companies call it different things, but I think that's a good way to think about like getting into these companies and positioning yourself to get into the business. And I think I heard the question correctly, but I think you were saying about people who maybe don't have this experience, like how they get into a defense tech. Yeah. So the other thing that I think about is like, at the end of the day, we are a business. And the exciting thing is we're protecting, like, it's a national security focus and there is a huge mission behind it, but it's also a business and all these other defense tech companies are businesses. And stripping it down and kind of reverse engineering it in a way where it's like, okay, how does X business make money? And then where can I add value? I think that's a really good way to look at it that a lot of people probably don't, because you might get so wrapped up in the fact that like, this is the industry I want to be in and this is the product, right? But if you think about like, how are we making money? How is this business going to grow? And then where can I hypothetically insert myself? I think it's a good way to like take a step back and figure out where you could add value.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great one. So that's folks coming in without that experience. I guess actually there's a question in here that it's a really nice segue from here of like, for job openings, you guys are on the smaller side as you're growing. Is it engineering first and then all the wraparound, or how do you think about the sequencing of those roles, those go-to-market roles?
Yeah, we go in with a plan and we have a budget, and it's like, these are the organizations that are going to grow this year. But then it's also need-based. Like if we have a lot more customer interaction, then we're going to have to hire more on the go-to-market side for expanding with existing customers, if it's net new expansion. So I don't really have a firm answer to that other than the fact that it's fluid. But I will say, no, it's not like we just only focus on our engineering organization and then everything else comes next, because we're already really heavily skewed towards engineering. I mean, not only are our founders technical, but like there's probably a 70-30 split engineering to everything else within the business right now.
Yeah. What do you think for folks who maybe are interested in the organization, you don't have those go-to-market roles up yet? Let's put on your recruiting hat for a second. Is like, do you want folks like that reaching out to you and in the network early? You want them to wait until roles? How would you advise people who are really excited about the company, but maybe the role's not open yet?
Yeah, because even if I'm not the person to talk to them, like we're always having those conversations internally. If it's someone on the go-to-market side, like one thing I've really appreciated about Shift5 is no one is ever going to say no to an introductory call, and you never know where it'll lead. Half of my job in executive search was just building relationships and taking these introductory calls for people that probably wouldn't have been a fit for like any search I was running in the next year plus, right? Or in the foreseeable future. So I do appreciate the outreach. And I think a good tool to do it is LinkedIn. Like I am a big fan of LinkedIn. I think it's a great form of social media. I saw you just made a post about it, and you made a post about, but just the fact that like you put stuff out there, and especially on LinkedIn, it gets picked up probably more so than other forms of social media. But I think, reach out, get your name out there. The likelihood too is the people that were really like OG defense tech that started Shift5, they have really strong connective tissue into all of the other defense tech companies that you're probably also targeting. So to make a positive impression on someone within our organization, there's a ripple effect across this whole ecosystem.
What's the best cold outreach you've seen? Like, what does that look like? Is there a candidate or story that you can share?
I mean, I've only been here. I don't think I've been here enough time. Maybe like check back in with me in 6 months.
All right, we'll let you off the hook.
For you. But I will say, like, it's pretty obvious to me, and I get a lot more outreach than I did when I was in an executive search firm because we have our logo. You're a little bit inconspicuous when you're in search, right? Like you could say, hey, these are the investors behind the company, but you don't have to give it away until you talk to the person. Everyone knows I work at Shift5 now. Like, it's in my email. So it's pretty clear when someone's blasting out a lot of notes and then just replacing like Shift5 in there. But when you say something specific or you just call out something that is very unique to either me or to how our business operates, it sounds very cliche and it sounds very obvious, but that does make you stick out because there's so many applicants coming in, there's so many resumes coming in. I think just like tailoring your approach, even though it'll take an extra couple of minutes, is really important.
So that's a good one. Tailored outreach for sure. What else for folks who are thinking about moves, whether they're coming from DoD, whether they're coming from industry, whether they're coming out of school? What else have you seen? Maybe give us some secrets, some creative tips that you've seen for folks to get noticed.
So I think building a social media presence is really important. Like, we are all so digitally connected and there's such a narrative around this. Not just blasting out to people on LinkedIn, but have a Twitter, make yourself known in some way on social media, or visible. I think that does go a long way. And then kudos to you because you're the person that's spearheading a lot of this in this ecosystem. But like, there are so many events nowadays where a lot of these companies are at. The likelihood is there's an event probably close to a city near you, if not in your specific city. Go out there, like, meet people face to face. That human interaction can't be replaced. And I'm saying that coming from a predominantly remote company, but like, I genuinely do believe the people that show up to events that put a face to the name, that sticks with whoever you're talking to a lot more than maybe just a tailored outreach.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that's a good reminder. And I actually think it's maybe even more true now that because so many of us are remote, like, FaceTime is worth more now than probably ever before. It's really differentiated to actually spend time with somebody face to face. So yeah, I mean, I'll hold my story for another time, but yeah, the ways to break into this space as an outsider, it can be real hard. And it's just like business where it's like, you got nothing until one day it pops. But if you got to put in the reps and just kind of keep going.
Yeah. And before we move off of this topic, I should just put it out there. I'm pretty sure the only reason we know each other is because I cold outreach to you in some capacity. I was like, I read your newsletter. You have no idea who I am. You're doing some cool stuff. And like, we're here now. So it does work.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's really, I'll make a plug for this because I will tell you, like, when we started even defense tech jobs, no one knew what the F we were doing. I didn't know if anyone was going to care. I was reaching out to everybody like, hey, you want to talk about this or that? And like at the beginning, not so many people. And not that this is like one of a couple of projects, right? But as we, like, Zach, you reaching out, it was so awesome because it's so clear to me, like, this is a really talented person who's going to absolutely crush it. Like, first of all, you're coming from a great place. You're going to great places. I see it all the time. Like, I'm on the receiving end all the time of whether it's for a podcast or whatever. There's a lot of folks who don't respond or they ignore emails. And look, sometimes it's me too. I'm sure it happens to you. I'm sure it happens to everybody on this call of, like, sometimes you're just buried and you genuinely forget. There are plenty of people who just, like, have a policy. I don't respond to cold outreach. And I just, I want to put out a different kind of energy into the world. I try to take as many of these calls as I possibly can. It doesn't mean I can be, like, it is at the point now where if I met with everybody who reached out about, like, first of all, I don't have keys to any job. So, like, I can't actually do it, but there's something to be said for everybody on this call right now. It was like, remember that feeling of where you're at today, where you're looking for something, you're trying to do something, and it's only through the generosity of others and through some amount of luck and yes, your own hard work that's going to come to fruition. And then when we're on the other side of the table, it's like, just try to remember that. And I tell myself every single day, it's just like, even when you don't want it, you value those 30 minutes, like go outside, take a walk. Well, maybe you could do a call while you're walking around or something like that. So I don't know. That's my soapbox on that topic.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. There's another question here in the chat around specifically the IC and to some extent within DoD for folks who've been lifelong in the military or in the intelligence community who haven't sold anything, they've not been in procurement, or they haven't been in an acquisition shop. Maybe they're not technical. How can folks build skills that make them marketable to a company like yours? Like, are there things that you've seen folks transitioning out do to kind of close that perceived gap, whether it's real or perceived, but to close that need?
Yeah, I'd probably argue, having not lived that myself, it's more perceived than real, because if you're doing that job, it's a very intense job that, you have crazy exposure to this world, and you've built a lot of skills that you could probably articulate in a way that would be really valuable to a Shift5. The thing you have to remember, I think it's like a mindset shift for those folks, is we're a small company. Like, we've been around for 5 years. We have pretty solid footing within the government. There are a ton of defense tech companies that are popping up that are 20 people. They've been founded within the last year, and they need that expertise. So then it really becomes like, what is your narrative as to what you did in that world? You could argue that, the people you interacted with, it's very akin to like being customer facing, and then you get into more of a go-to-market role. You could argue that you were sort of the utility player. Like, I could very easily come in and do a lot of the operational work that would make me like a chief of staff at your company, right? Like, I think in recruiting, everyone has really great skill sets. There's not always a linear path, but it's about how you articulate that narrative. And then to take that a step further, like, figure out what your kind of it factor is, what your differentiator is, and then who did you work with at those places, so that if you have a really good rapport with someone at that business and you have like 1 or 2 introductory calls with X business, say, hey, by the way, you should talk to this person, and they'll tell you just exactly how we partnered together. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more opportunities that will pop up for you, and it'll look a lot more obvious to you than it does when just like looking at a JD.
Yeah, no, I love that. I've talked to people like venture, or if you're an investor, they ask you to pitch a company, right? Pitch a deal. And I think, why not do the same here? If you want to go to market role, like pitch a customer, who is Shift5 maybe not selling to, not like, the Air Force, but what unit, what squadron, what's their budgetary authority, what's the whole package, put that together, right? Ship it.
Something that I was taught at Daversa, to always ask, and I did it a lot in executive search, but I'm doing it a lot here at Shift5 too, is I want to learn a little bit more about the how and why as opposed to the what and when. And it's like, what are the motivators in the moves that you made? Even if you were, within the DoD in a specific capacity for 10 years, you were doing different things, right? And like, what motivated those moves? What did you do that landed you in that bigger position, right? The what and when is like, you and I could just sit here like this and I could read you my resume step by step. But when you position it that way, and even if a recruiter doesn't ask you that, but if you think about it that way, I think you'll have a much easier time kind of getting close to, okay, this is exactly what I'm good at, and this is why I was able to step in the various positions I was in. So maybe that's a good also like mindset shift.
I love that. Yeah, no, it's starting with why. Simon Sinek, great book, great motto, great way to live. Cool. I see we're just about at time here. I think, Zach, I want to be respectful of yours and everybody else's time. What did we not cover? What wisdom do you have left to impart, or any closing words for folks who may, be thinking about transitioning into this world?
Yeah, I think give everyone a pat on the back for even showing up to something like this, like taking these steps and listening to hopefully what is helpful advice for myself, but being looped in with you. Like, I genuinely believe that defense tech is going to be increasingly important year after year from right now. It is, buzzy. It is an exciting sector right now that you hear a lot more about today than you did 5 years ago. But like, get your name out there, show your face at events, just start to create some noise in the world. And there's going to be a plethora of opportunities because I feel like every day there's exciting companies popping up. So, yeah.
Yep. It's not going away anytime soon. Need's not going away. A lot of great folks doing great things. If folks want to stay apprised, Shift5 opportunities, connect with you, where can they do that, Zach?
Yeah, it would just be go to our website, and then we have a careers page there. We do have a number of open recs. They're not all engineering. So we've got a lot open right now. And connect with me on LinkedIn. And like I said, I'm happy to talk to anyone and meet anyone. But yeah, excited to connect with anyone that's on this call.
Fantastic. Thanks for making the time. Really appreciate you, Zach. Thank you, everybody, for hopping on here. We're going to be off next week for those of you. If anybody's in the North Carolina area, we will be down in Research Triangle for the very first National Interest Talent Network kickoff. That'll be on Duke's campus. It'll be a lot of fun. Shift5 will be at the next one, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
On this one. But if any of y'all are in the area, we'd love to see you. It'll be really cool, and I think a great opportunity to meet some good folks. With that, thank you all for joining us. We're going to sign off. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. See ya.